just to give you a tiny bit of our background, we are trying to get our great nieces back from Texas Department of Family Protective Services.
Mm-hmm.
We had them with us for 8 months. They made us go through a foster program, become foster parents before they would let us have them to begin with. They've already removed their parents' parental rights through court. After 8 months, they came out here and just took them. And
okay,
so they took them.
Let me stop and let me try to do this and stop every so often before somebody talks too long. You said the parents lost their parental rights. Were they convicted of some sort of criminal crime, or did they just voluntarily didn't bother to show up and didn't care?
After 2 years of them not doing anything that the CPS wanted them to do, nothing at all because they're strung out on drugs,
mm-hmm.
They both voluntarily signed paperwork to give up their rights. However, it was because they were told the children would be with us.
Okay. Oh, so they were told that the parents would be. Okay. Well, that's good. See, like I said, you might think that my way is going to be unique or kind of weird because I'm actually going to go back. It's the fancy legal word is non-punk. You go back to the beginning. One of the best things to do is the parents, believe it or not, this is a pretty simple answer. They could go back and rescind the contract because they could just state a claim that the contract was not carried out in the manner in which it was offered. Now, I'll give folks a little simple example. When somebody offers you something, if they don't say when you sign it that it is with or without prejudice, you could just presume it's without prejudice, which means I could bring this up again anytime I want in court again as many times as I want. But if it's signed with prejudice, that means like it's basically sealed and done, and nobody could ever come back and discuss the matter. So, believe it or not, an easy thing to do would be to say to the parents, like I said, if you really want to know the technical term, it's fraud in the inducement or fraud in the factum, if you really want to Google those words and study those words. One just basically says that you believe that you're signing something and they were never going to go through with it, or after you signed it, they forgot to tell you something. So that's fraud in inducement and fraud in the factum. So one's in fact, they were never going to do it, or fraud in the inducement was once you signed it, well, they were never going to carry out. Well, they forgot to tell you. They forgot to tell you that there was this one, it looks like, say you buy a house, and they forget to tell you that the train goes by, for 6 hours a night from midnight to 6 o'clock. If they told you that, you would have never bought the house. So, like I said, it's a basic, simple thing with DH, but anything. To me, everything is not case-specific, and everything is case-specific. So law is kind of fun. It's like you have a unique situation because you believe you have a unique situation. But this occurs just about in any time you step out into the public domain, you're going to get offers. And everything basically works the same way, same principles, whether you buy the house or the children are taken. So now what I would basically do is I would say, if I was the parents, that, hey, we were led to believe this. This is what we got. This is, we believed that we were going to get, a bag of marbles. All of a sudden they hand us a bag of chalk. This is not what we agreed on. So however they want to stylize it, that this is what we were led to believe, and this is what we truly got.
The parents are still out there on drugs and doing whatever it was they were doing.
That's fine.
And the only people that want the children back are me and my husband.
Well, what I'm saying is, this is basically like I'm saying a generic answer. Whoever originally was had custody of the children, which obviously was the parents, whoever was the primary custody holder of that property, they have the right to go back if they were led to believe. Is there any way, okay, so now we'll make it your case specific now. Is there any way you could work with the original parents, or they just don't want to work with you?
No, we could probably work with the mother who's our niece. Now, I don't know about the father because we don't know a whole bunch about him. So
you don't need him. You don't need him. The mother could just make a claim that she was defrauded of her rights. It's defraud, not fraud. Don't write the word fraud. It's defraud. She was defrauded of her rights to her property because she was led to believe that her property would be with a family member. So that was led by fraud. Whatever you do not file it in family court. Do not file any kind of claim like that fraud was committed in a family court. Does that make
No,
any sense?
from your talk before, it goes to what is called the court of record or a federal district court.
Don't ever take it to, well, I wouldn't say don't ever take it to federal court, but you folks have to realize, most folks know this who are listening to this show, that the county sheriff's department is the highest enforcement officer in this land. So even if you got a judgment from, say, federal court, what happened if the county sheriff did not want the U.S. Marshals coming into his county? He basically has higher jurisdiction than a federal marshal. I mean, now the federal marshals will argue the fact, well, the interstate goes through, or the railroad goes through this county, or there's an airport, so they have federal jurisdiction. But honestly, I'd rather just deal with the county and the county sheriff's department because it's just a lot simpler than trying to deal with the feds. It's just a lot simpler. They're more on your level, and you could talk to them, and you elect them, and they basically will have a quicker response time than dealing with the feds.
And you do that in the county you live, or the county the kids live?
No, they were taking it. Where do the kids live? What state do they live in?
Well, they live here in Texas, but they were taken back and put in the same foster home they were in before us, and that's in Harris County. We live in Wharton County. They were here with us 8 months in Wharton County.
Where was the contract signed? How about that?
The contract was signed in Chambers County, who claims to be the court of jurisdiction.
That's what I would do. I'd take it into that county. Now, they could always tell you that you filed in the wrong county. That's no big deal. There's no harm, no foul. Nobody's going to get upset about that. The people that you're suing will just say, hey, you filed in the wrong county. You need to file in a local jurisdiction where it's easier for us to answer instead of traveling, because Texas is whatever, 400, 900 miles wide. They might just say, hey.
What if the judge in that court is in on it?
There's no judge in the court of record, except for the jury. There's no court. There's a man in a black robe who might, sit in the front, sit on the side, sit in the back. It all depends. But no, the judge you're going to demand a trial. Well, you're not going to, because you're not going to do what I tell you to. It's going to be up to you. It's your wish. But when you move for a trial by jury, the jury is your judges. I mean, everybody heard that expression, the only thing that judges me is God and country, or God and my peers, or God and the jury. No one man judges me. That's ridiculous. You could let one man judge you. That's okay. Sometimes it's beneficial just to have one man because he has to deal with the black and white letter of the law. Now, the jury could be colorful. The jury could determine that the law is horrible. The law that you brought before them is ridiculous. And they can modify and twist it. And they could say, well, we'll give you half instead of giving you whole, or we'll give you 10 times the amount, or we'll give you 10 times less. But the judge has to do what is before him, the man in a black robe. I'll say that the court officer in a black robe is bound by the black and white that's before him. So the only time, like I said, is when you can have a judge be colorful like that is when there's like a contract dispute. So you're basically saying there is a contract dispute, so that's why you got to be very careful of taking in front of a man with a black robe on, because if you're allowing him to be the third-party intervener in that contract between whatever they're called, family people and you folks, then he's going to be able to try to find something called equity to balance it out. He's going to try to find a fair judgment that everybody's happy. But the jury will basically just nail one side and let the other side go. Sometimes the jury will balance it out. But the judge, he'll try to do what they call equity. He'll try to find some place in the middle. Or if he's, like you said, you think he's a ringer and he's totally on the other side, he's in their pocket, you're definitely going to lose. So then I'd rather take the case before a jury. Let them decide. Because it's a property issue. The jury has every right to determine property issues in this country. And you believe that those children are your property, right?
We do. Our family property is.
Right. And why do you think they're property? Do you know the definition of property?
I do, from what you said the other night. I wrote it down. I don't really have it memorized yet, but it's that they were made from our family DNA, or they come from our family, and we have exclusive right to them. No one else is superior over us in that. They can't prove that they came from their DNA or their family. Okay,
that's not bad. That's a little case specific, but what I like to rely on this man named Mr. John Law that lived a while back, that Thomas Jefferson basically stole all his material and stole all of Thomas Paine's material, and he wrote the Declaration of Independence based upon Locke and Paine. And Mr. Locke made it very simple. Your property is all that you claim is proper to your person, and you have the right to the exclusive enjoyment and to possess it amongst exclusive to all others on this planet. That's property. You say those children are my right to have it and enjoy, exclusive of all others. If any man or woman wants to come forth and make their claim, like their vested interest in this child, come forth and speak now or forever hold your peace. Make your claim known to the court, and you let them make their claim known. And I always do it without prejudice. I say if any man from here till the end of eternity wants to come forth and make a claim that this child is their lawful child, that should be exclusive in their rightful possession or 50-50 in their possession, make their claim known to any court at any time, and I'll be more than glad to answer any lawful claim made against me or my property. That way it sounds very kumbaya-ish, very huggy-feely, that you don't feel like you're threatening anybody or, playing hard ass. That we're leaving it open. There you go. So I think it's very, very simple. So go on with that again, and, you can finish, but that's my easy solution. But you were saying they were taken and placed back into custody in somebody else's family, and you had rights to them at one time, and then they revoked your rights or rescinded or they withdrew the contract or offer. Now, why did they, I'll delve into that a little bit, but it's basically irrelevant. Why did they pull the children back from you? Did they say you did something wrong?
No, they claimed in court what they told the judge in court when they went in there and did their placement hearing is what they call it. They claimed that the oldest child told the CPS worker that she was not happy here and did not want to be adopted. That was their first claim.
How old was she?
She's 8.
8? Okay, that's interesting. I thought you were going to say 14, and then I'll say just tell the state then if she's not happy, emancipate her and let her make her own decisions, let her wear the big boy pants, and let her get out on her own and get a job.
Well, that's what they first said. Now they're coming back and saying that there was health and safety issues having to do with the oldest child not wanting to eat her vegetables and me being too rigid about that.
That's fine. That's all silly stuff. The child is incompetent. The child can't testify. The child has no rights. The child's your property. And the child, like a folks, man, I was raised the old-fashioned way. My dad put me on this planet. He could take me out of this planet. And nobody could say anything otherwise. So, I could just imagine we tried that nonsense when we were kids. Run to the social services and said, my dad tried to make me eat vegetables, take me away. They'd laugh at us. So what you have to do is, like I said, you have to establish that is yours exclusive to all others. And that way nobody has a right to tell you what you can and cannot do with that child, especially an administrative agency or officer, because they do not have any rights. What they're allowed to do and not do is established under a code. So they don't have rights. They have a duty or an obligation to conform with certain regulations, ordinances, or, statutes, but they certainly don't have a right to tell you what to do with your property. They can't come and tell you to paint your car black because everybody in the neighborhood wants their cars painted black. They can't tell you what you can and cannot do with your property.
As being the great aunt and uncle, do my husband and I have that same right to those children?
Well, Alexis, that's what I tried to say. Maybe I say a little slower. If anybody, I could come to Texas and claim that child. And if nobody makes a claim superior to my claim, I'm going to walk out of that court with that child. Anybody can place a claim. Any man or woman can make a claim for that child. That's what I was saying, without prejudice. I will accept all offers. I will accept that somebody has a claim to that property. If somebody believes that that's their property, make themselves known. Show me where you believe that that's your property, and I'll be more than glad to either share the property or transfer the property over to your lawful custody. If you can't show me that your claim is superior to my claim, well, obviously I'm not going to relinquish my custody, my property, to just anybody. Like even something simple, like say I had a wife, and some man comes along and says, she's my wife. I was like, what? She never divorced me, and she never did this, and she never did that, and she just left me with the kids. And I was like, what? And it's like, well, come and get her. Well, that actually happened to me one time. She said, well, she was my wife up until she left for work this afternoon. I said, you know where, I told them where my folks' farm was. I said, you know where she is? Yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where she is. Come and get her. And she's like, I don't want to go with him. I said, ma'am, shut the hell up. I said, why didn't you tell me? You were some other man's. Well, I don't want to be with him. I said, ma'am, you got to go. And he was like, well, I know where she is. And I was like, well, she's got to go. I said, you know where the door is. And she left. So like I said, if somebody makes a claim, a superior claim to their property, I'm not going to fight and say, well, it's mine now. Try to come and get it. I'm like, okay, show me the proof. I was like, well, did she tell you she was married? She said she was divorced. Yeah, well, she was married up until 5 o'clock this afternoon when she went to work. I was like, well, you didn't know. I just met her at work today. It's like, yep, somebody told me she went home with you. I was like, yeah, well, she said she wasn't married. So when the guy said, I said, well, she's yours. Come and get her. It's just no different than me having his 5-year-old son there. Come and get him. I have no right to claim your property. They have no business being here on my farm.
Hey, so the Texas Department of Family Services, though, since they now have what's called custody of the children out of this court of record, that doesn't give them superior rights? They can't make that claim because they're not a person?
Anybody could come forward and make a claim for anybody's property at any time. That's what I'm trying to say, without prejudice. Somebody could come, I have a Camaro that I've had since 1980, since November. If somebody wants to come forward to me and says, hey, where'd you buy that? Oh, out in Las Vegas. Yeah, well, you know what? Somebody stole it from me in California in 1970. I'd like it back. And I'd be like, wow, I got about $30,000 into it. Basically a value of a Camaro back then was what, $2,000, $2,500? I'll give you $2,500 because that was the fair value of what it was in 1970. But I'm not going to give you a $30,000 Camaro. But I will still reimburse him because honestly, yes, that was his property. Somebody wrongfully took it from him, and yes, I will compensate him for his loss. So it's the same thing with when you're trying to say the DHR is trying to. One, first of all, DHR can't make a claim. And second of all, they just have legal custody of the child, not lawful custody. So while we still live in a lawful land, your lawful claim for property is superior than a legal claim or legal possession. Now in France, it's backwards. The legal claim would have precedent over the lawful claim. So thank God we still live in this nation that believes in lawful procedures prevail over legal procedures. So you're going to make a lawful claim. All they could do is make a legal claim to the child.
Got you. Okay.
Big difference. The judge is going to have to say what is before me, a lawful claim and a legal claim. That's what if you could explain to the jury, that'd be even better. These are very simple concepts, and I think I don't know. I guess if you folks listen to what I say a little bit, I'm going to try to talk slower, and since it's my call, I don't feel pressured to have to ram it down as fast as I can in 20 seconds. So I'm going to record these things so you folks will just come back and keep listening to them. But I'm glad the first answer question was a family question because I really enjoy family questions because my kid was taken, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. I don't really want to explain too much to folks. But it was pretty funny that they just walked into the hospital room and just asked us to sign all kinds of paperwork. And I said, I don't want to sign anything with the state of Alabama. If I do enter into a contract, it's going to be back in Virginia. This child was just born premature, and we had no intent on registering or certifying or, titling this child through Alabama. We want him to be considered, like a citizen of property of Virginia, a commonwealth. We don't want him to be part of a state. We want him to be part of a commonwealth. And they were like, well, he's here now. And I said, well, when he gets released from this hospital, discharged, we're going to do all the paperwork up in Virginia. They said, if you don't file any of the paperwork with us, we're not going to release him. And I just said, you got to be kidding. Nobody's going to sign any documents with the state of Alabama. It's like if our plane crashed in North Korea and the wife had the baby in North Korea, and North Korea says, well, we're not going to release that child to you unless you make this child a North Korean citizen. I was like, you're out of your mind. I'm going to drag this child back to America, and I'm going to do all the paperwork there. And they were like, no, you have to register him here first and title him here. I was like, no, because then they'll give you jurisdiction or authority, some sort of belief that you can control my child. No, not doing it. So they told me if we don't sign the paperwork, we'll never see the child again. I said, if that child's not there at 7 o'clock in the morning, when we come back to feed him in the morning before we go to work, we're going to sue you. And that's exactly what happened. He wasn't there the next morning, and there you go. File a lawsuit, and on the way we are.
I just wanted to know, you mentioned in your episode 187 is the one I listened to, and I got all the copies of the pleadings you the cover pages and the pleadings you did, but you mentioned in there you sent a letter to the clerk that had to do with not having to pay the filing fee. Is there a way that we can get a copy of that? Because I couldn't quite get all that written down when you were saying it.
Well, this is why I call the show the uncommon law, because a lot of folks, there's a lot of good guys out there, like Canadian, there's a couple of Canadian guys up there, and English and Australian folks, and they'll tell you go file these forms, file these forms, file these forms. Okay? One way, believe it or not, it was kind of funny how I got the fees waived. I just walked into the clerk of the court's office, the court clerk's office, and clerk of the court, I was appealing something, and she said to me, well, we're going to need court costs, the ticket, fine, and jury trial. We're going to need all these payments. She started doing the numbers, and I just started smiling, and I said, well, ma'am, can I please speak to the court clerk? And she said, well, I'm the clerk of the court. I said, no, I want to talk to the court clerk. And she said, oh, you mean the head clerk? She said, well, I am that. I said, good. I said, I'm going to have to just rely on my right that I can move a trial by jury in the Commonwealth without paying a fee. And she said, well, that's not going to happen. You're going to pay like everybody else. I said, okay, now I accomplished it through you. Who's the head judge here, the chief judge? He says, what? I said, I'm going to get it. I'm going to ask him if he's also going to make a demand of a filing fee. And I'm going to say to him extremely simply that my word is my bond. Do you accept bonds? And she said, well, of course we accept bonds. I said, well, I'm going to say to him, my word is my bond. And whatever the verdict comes down from the jury, and they demand me to pay a certain amount of money for a debt, I said I'll be more than glad to settle the debt once the jury comes down with their verdict and determines I owe something to somebody. But you can't order me to do anything. You know, if you want to order me to do something, I'm going to make a claim against you that you had no right to order me to do anything. That I'm going to rely upon my right to have a trial by jury under the Bill of Rights, Article 7, that I have the right to move a court of record and a trial by jury. So she was like, oh, you know what, I'm not going to, she was like, you could see, she was like, I'm not going around with this guy. You know what, she's like, fine, we'll see you in 30 days, 11 o'clock in the morning, how's that? I said, that works fine. She's like, I'm not even going to go around with this guy. So what's funny is if you want to put something in writing before these people, that's fine. They're going to challenge you on what you're submitting to them. Like if I just give you a one-sentence thing and hand it to the lady's going to be like, well, that's fine, it's special, but you know what, you're still going to pay. Because like I said, I made sure that I knew the law of these courts, that you first have to, there's two sides of the court. You got the court clerk side, and you got the chief judge's side. The court clerk assigns all the cases to the judges and pays the judges. She's the one who does all the records. She basically stays there for 30, 40, 50 years. The judge basically gets elected. He's in and out every year or two. There's somebody else there. So she is the stable portion of the court. She is basically the bedrock. So when you go through it, you got to understand, too, you have a clerk of the court and you have a court clerk. The clerks of the court are just the minions that works for the court clerk. So when you direct something to the court, you direct it to the court clerk. And you try to define her by name. You say, hi, Susie. I believe you're the court clerk. I wish to move my case and this claim before a trial by jury, and I believe my rights are secured by the Bill of Rights, Article 7. And I believe I have the right to move a claim without paying a filing fee. Now, part of me says, well, if the filing fee is like exorbitant, I'll try to fight that because, like I said, for a traffic ticket, it was ridiculous. They wanted hundreds of dollars. I was like, this is ridiculous. So I said, I'm going to try to do the old razzle-dazzle. If I think the filing fee is reasonable, even though it's a publicly funded organization and tax dollars basically pay the judge's salary, if I make it easier for me to file it, because some cases, like if you want to have a void judgment like this, everybody's court, I don't know if you realize this or not, the court clerk will actually give you a filing fee schedule. Now, if you want to do a void judgment, I know in Alabama, in Jefferson County, if you want to file for a void judgment, it's free. If you want to file for a divorce, it's like $150. So all courts and the clerks of the courts have all different filing fees that they're willing to work with you. And usually it's on their website, a filing fee schedule. So if you believe that there's a order that you want to have void, like you're trying to say, well, I want this contract or order between Texas, DHR, DSS, Family Services, whatever they are in Texas. If you want to have that order void, you could just make a claim in that county. It says, I want that order void because of the parents or the mom is going to say that she was defrauded out of her rights to her property. So sometimes, like I said, the filing fees are free. So if you just go down there and work with the folks, believe it or not, the court clerk, it worked with me one time in North Carolina. I said to her, can I pay this off $5 a week? And she's like, yeah, sure. As long as they know that they're going to get some money, they're really not that hard to work with. So, like I said, it's just who you're dealing with down there in Texas and how you approach them. And that's my whole philosophy when you engage with somebody and they don't want to work with you. It depends on how you came at them or how belligerent you are or how nice you are. And it goes a long way being polite, common courtesy. But they're human beings too. They have feelings too.